got Gaurang Shah, who's Assistant Vice President at Geojit BNP Paribas Financial Services, joining us on the show. Gaurang, to begin with, just focusing specifically on Coal India Limited, what's your view, in terms of what would you advise an investor on that one?
Well, firstly, as a disclosure, we do have a positive coverage on Coal India. Our earlier target was reduced to about 260, then the target was revised to about 290. And if you see, George, over the last 3 to 6 months, in spite of the news on the negative side, the stock has been able to stay afloat at about 300 plus kind of levels. So if notwithstanding what happens in the near term, because there are still a lot of issues which needs to be resolved and clarity to be emerged, we feel that close to about 300, 320, if somebody is looking at it a longish time horizon, because coal mining business is a long gestation period, we have recommended a buy and a hold on the stock from a medium to long term time horizon. There are issues with FSAs being signed, penal clause in place, and of course whether or not Coal India will import coal to to respect that FSA that they have. Keeping everything in mind and the kind of reserves that they have and the outlook going forward, we feel that one can definitely use these levels to get invested, and we have a conservative target about 385 to 400. We will definitely revisit these targets in case if there is some positivity emerging as these news flows clear going forward from here on. So from now on, I think the downside is very much limited on Coal India, and one can definitely use opportunities to get into it close to about 300, 320 levels.
Gaurang, what about the overall index? Are you approaching it, with the view that perhaps there is going to be a strong rebound, or that the fundamentals, the underlying fundamentals of the market do continue to remain weak?
Well, the underlying fundamental, Avan, does remain weak as of now, and there is still not much of clarity emerging, whether it is domestic issues or overseas issues. The greatest problem is the flows which have been quite tepid from the FI side. From here on, whether there will be incremental strength, I think 5,030, 5,045 levels could be visible. We have the expiry on Thursday, and that would lead to a lot of volatility. So, what we are advising clients is close to about sub 4,900, 48, 4850. Depending upon the risk appetite, we've been advising about 50% investment. And the thing is, Avan, that, considering all the negativity, if the market has to correct 5-10%, which we've been hearing on the street, then from these levels, 5-10%, if somebody does not have the appetite, risk appetite I'm talking about, to getting invested at these levels and seeing 5-10% downside, then I think one cannot deserve to be coming and investing in the equity market. So given the risk reward, I think if you're not looking at immediate 3 to 6 months, longest time horizon, we definitely feel that the rewards are in favor of getting invested at these levels. Not 100%, maybe 50%, yes. And on dips, you can definitely go ahead and add more. A lot will depend upon where does the rupee-dollar equation go from here on. And if you ask us as a brokerage house, we feel that about 56, 56.50 will be the kind of levels that you will see in the month of June. And of course, a lot will depend upon the dollar demand globally.
Gaurang, also a word on the Telecom pack, because we've had Morgan Stanley, which has downgraded Reliance Communications, Idea, Bharti, Airtel. How are you viewing these particular counters?
Well, to be stock specific in the Telecom pack, George, RCom, we have kind of advised a hold and reduced at any kind of move on the upside. I think our earlier target was about 120, we reduced it to about 80, 85. So you can hold on to it. The downside on the RCom looks limited now. Possibly on a recovery you can exit. On Bharti and Idea, well, firstly on Bharti, we had a target about 445, but given the kind of numbers and the issues with the TRAI, DOT and the 2G licenses, we have reduced our target to 400 from 445. And we feel that, close to about 300 and 280 levels, you have a very strong floor in place for Bharti Airtel. For Idea, our earlier target was about 125 to 120. I guess we have reduced it to about 110. Here again, I think a lot will depend upon the clarity, and the problem is the loans by the banks to the telecom sector, which is at a higher level now. And in case if the fees that the telecoms company have to pay for the 2G, if they are where it is right now, then I think that will open up a lot of issues in terms of revenues getting generated for going forward. And in this whole business of 3G, 4G, etc., I don't think any of the companies are able to meet the kind of targets that they set aside when they initially rolled out the 3G. So I think it's a difficult time, and here I would like to be very clear. I think if you're getting invested in telecom, you need to give a little bit of longish time horizon compared to other sectors.
And Gaurang, how are you viewing some of the banks with a large exposure to the telecom space, particularly in IDBI or a PNB?
Well, Avan, as a brokerage house, we are positive bias on private sector banks compared to PSU, but that does not mean that we are ignoring the entire PSU lot. I think we have a positive coverage on Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, to name a few stock over there, even State Bank of India, but it's very near to our target price. So here on, we see value in private sector banks, starting with Axis, ICICI, IndusInd Bank and Yes Bank. HDFC Bank, I think we'll wait for another quarter to see the earnings and then possibly take a call. So the bias is clearly towards the private sector banks compared to PSU banks.